Well, guys, congrats on this beautiful, amazing movie.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's an honor to be here with you. Let's start with something that I'm obsessed with, and is the fact that this movie has an intermission. I love that this movie has an intermission, and I wanted to ask you two quick questions about this. How do you think the intermission changes the way the audience dives into the movie? And when was the last time that you experienced, as cinema viewers, an intermission in a movie? Because for me, I think it was King Kong years ago.
I love intermissions. I grew up with them to a certain extent. They still hadn't fallen completely out of fashion when I was growing up. Especially they were quite common when I was living in France and Italy. Sometimes films would get broken up whether they had an intermission or not. But you know, the thing is that I think there's no worse feeling to, be 2.5 hours into a movie and you've got another 30 or 40 minutes left and you have to run to the restroom, but you don't want to miss anything.
And so it's distraction. You can't keep your focus on the emotional and the content of the film. Yes.
Exactly. So we wanted to make sure that everyone had, a short break to do whatever they need to do, and that it would just break it up and make it a lot more digestible for everyone.
Makes sense.
I also just think that there's something exciting about the communal experience and even the brief conversation that you're having with whoever you've attended with. That's something I really enjoy when I go to a play. And then the last film I saw with the intermission, I'm sure it was The Sound of Music or something that I've seen with my daughter, in theatrical exhibition.
What about you, Mr. Brody? Do you remember having an experience like that in a movie? Stepping out?
I feel like this is really, it feels like a film from another era.
Sure.
And that's in combination with shooting on VistaVision. There's a real look and feel to this that is unique. I think that's what makes it so special. I love that it beyond having an intermission, there's an overture, there's all of these eloquent qualities to it, and chapters. And the two, aside from having a moment to process and do what you need to kind of come back into the second part of this film, it's quite an event. It's quite an experience. Sure. And I think it makes it even have a greater impact by having that little moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've read an interview, Mr. Brody, between you, Jeremy Strong, the actor, and there you said that when you won the Oscar for the pianist, you had an amazing night. You shared that with your parents, and you also went into the street and let someone that you didn't know hold the Oscar for a second. If you win again, do you think you will have that kind of experience again?
Let's cross that bridge. It depends on who that person is. That experience was quite unique. I went across from the theater on Hollywood Boulevard, and there was a barricade, and there were all these fans and people just looking to see who they might see. And I handed it over to them across the barricade. And I remember there was a police officer there, and said, I wouldn't do that. And I already did. And they kind of marveled at it just as much as I was marveling at it. And they handed it back, and it was a beautiful moment. I was just as surprised as they were.
There's a quote that I think a lot about. I don't know if you have heard it. It says, "How you do one thing is how you do everything." Do you feel that by making a movie about how a building is built, you're also telling how a movie is made, how a company is founded, how the world works as it works?
Yeah, I mean, I think that any job that requires, you know, artistic expression on the one hand and a lot of management on the other. I mean, I have so many friends that are chefs with restaurants, and they're dealing with investors, and you know, if they're unlucky enough to have a couple of slow weeks, then the fate of the entire project is at stake. And you know, I think that there are many jobs that have this in common. But when we were writing a movie about an architect, my wife and partner is also a filmmaker, and we imbued many situations with details from our own experiences making movies, of course.
Mr. Brody, I had this also written down. I loved Cling. I love your movie, Cling.
Thank you so much.
I enjoyed it so much. As someone that composed the score for that movie, how do you feel the soundtrack, the score of The Brutalist, modifies your work as an actor?
Oh well, the music is such an emotional force. You know, it can, like music in particular, I feel can bridge all cultures and language barriers. You either feel something or you don't, and you can enhance visuals with sounds, and you can detract from them with the wrong ones. And I mean, Daniel Blumberg's work in this film is so brave and gripping and stellar and daunting. And as is Brady's direction. You know, I also aspire to direct, and I have been making music my whole life, but these two are such pillars and such triumphs that when you see it and the complexity and the nuance and the storytelling, it gives you pause. But I'm just so grateful to Daniel's contribution to this film. When I hear references to the cinematic breadth of this film, to films of another era, to films that are some of my favorite films ever, The Godfather, these kind of enormous references, and I see Brady's imagery in this vastness and Daniel's emotionally gripping and heart-wrenching score, that's why you get those parallels, and it's to their credit.
We don't have time for more, but really, thank you. I had an amazing time watching this movie, and it felt like something I would remember, and I will remember this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank
really
you so
appreciate
much,
it.
sir.
Thank you very much for your kind